for more about the economy in South Africa. We're joined by Abdullahi Halakhe. He's the Africa Security and Policy Analyst. Good to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time. We don't talk about South Africa very often, but it is quite the surprise they're doing as well as they are. Plus, they're also one of the original members of the BRICS, which is the developing countries. So they're very important in terms of the global viewpoint when it comes to developing countries. How are they so strong?
Thank you, Phil. I think it's a combination of factors. One is, some of the sectors that really did not do very well, that are very sensitive to the changes that were introduced by COVID, are beginning to do well. That includes agriculture as well as tourism, that contributes something like 3.7% to the country's GDP. And South Africa, it's a big travel destination, not just within the region, that is the African region and South African region in particular, but also for tourists from elsewhere. All these things have combined to make South Africa's economy slightly better. But I think the improvement should be taken with a pinch of salt, because the last quarter, this quarter was July, September, the last quarter grew at 0.6%, and so as a result, this defying of expectation was a welcome relief at a time of political challenges in South Africa.
Like most of the world coming out of the COVID, we have seen high inflation, right? Whether it's in Europe or the America, and of course in South Africa, we just said it's at a 13-year high. Now, ultimately, that's going to impact the economy in a negative way. How is the central bank or the government going to, I guess, fight those efforts or fight inflation?
They're trying. I think one of the advantages that South Africa has, despite its politics being fraught, the central bank is still fairly independent, in fact, independent. And so as a result, they will use all the monetary tools that they have to be able to address that. However, the thing about South Africa, like many other, economies around the world, they don't have all the tools with them. What will happen in the global economy, particularly what the Fed does and how EU responds, particularly as it moves into the winter. If they cut their rates or increase their rates, although over the last few days, the signals that the Fed is sending that it's not going to massively increase the interest rate, all those will have its impact. But to the extent that the South African government, particularly the Treasury, is independent, that will insulate them only to an extent. But I think I also want to, touch a bit about South Africa's structural problems, and one of them is unemployment. South Africa is probably one of the, highest unemployment in the world. Secondly, the national electricity company Eskom also has serious financial challenges, and we are witnessing what they call load shedding, largely, blackout or lack of electricity in scheduled areas and at scheduled time.
I guess it's a little confusing, because on one hand, we're saying the economy is strong, but there's a lot of this underlying issues, very serious issues, in fact. You're talking about electricity, because you need that to grow the economy. Then you have the political scene that's happening with this this farm gate, which, if you could help us understand why this could be a make it or break it for this administration, and why this is so important to the administration and ultimately to the economy.
That is a very important question that you raised there. The current president, Ramaphosa, came into power, on the crest of calling for accountability when, the previous president or the administration of the previous president of Jacob Zuma, that period, which was almost 10 years, that was largely considered by many policy and economic analysts as the lost decade. So when Ramaphosa came into power, there was a fair degree of certainty and stability, and people are feeling that South Africa now will claim its rightful place after they've been blighted by waves of corruptions. But now him probably being brought down on a question of accountability raises serious question. However, we've got to say that South Africa's institutions are still strong and stable even if, which is a big if, the current president is impeached, which is highly unlikely, they still have a tremendous amount of support within the parliament. Things will continue. However, I think we've got to admit that South Africa's ANC party that has been in power since the end of apartheid, it's been losing ground. Last year, during the municipal election, for the first time, its vote number were below 50%. That is an harbinger for what is coming. However, it still enjoys tremendous amount of support because the two other parties are not nearly as strong as the ANC.
Right. Seems like there's many more chapters of the story. Abdullahi, I appreciate the analysis on this important topic of South Africa. Thank you.